In the upscale neighborhood of Hillview, where glass-paneled mansions sat behind electric fences and the air smelled of wealth, lived Ken, a 34-year-old software entrepreneur whose name was often printed in tech journals and business magazines. He was brilliant, soft-spoken, and known for building one of the country's fastest-growing fintech startups. But beyond the headlines and glowing LinkedIn posts was a quieter truth. Ken was a mama's boy. Raised by his widowed mother, Eva, he carried the guilt of her sacrifices like a second skin. Eva was a name in her own right, former banker, current society matron, and chairwoman of every charity committee worth attending. She walked in pearls and judged in silence. Since Kenneth was her only son, she felt entitled to every major decision in his life, especially whom he would marry. Then came Nolly. She wasn't the kind of woman Ken's mother had imagined for her son. Nolly was soft-spoken, with the kind of beauty that didn't announce itself in designer heels or loud lipstick. She had beautiful almond-shaped eyes and a smile that could calm the loudest storm. She met Ken at a tech summit in Nairobi that she was coordinating, and he was a keynote speaker. He was used to being surrounded by efficiency and polish, but something about the way Nolly moved through the room caught his attention. She was in the background, making sure everything ran seamlessly, greeting guests with warmth, picking up after others without drawing attention to herself. Their first real conversation wasn't about business or tech, but of the playlist she'd chosen for the event. "Your music selection is not bad," he teased with a smile as he caught up with her near the coffee station. She smirked. "Not bad? I take my music very seriously." "Clearly," he said. "But do you dance?" "Only when no one is watching." He laughed, the kind of laugh that lingered in his chest long after the moment passed. He hadn't realized how long it had been since he'd laughed like that, since someone disarmed him without trying, since a conversation felt like sunlight instead of strategy. And from that day, he began to chase that feeling, that ease, that laugh, that version of himself that only existed when she was near. What began as occasional chats turned into coffee dates, coffee turned into late dinners, and late dinners turned into long drives with no destination. She introduced him to small, tucked-away restaurants in Ngong where they ate chapati and liver with their hands. He took her to quiet rooftop lounges where the view was better than the food. They spent hours talking about everything and nothing, about childhood fears and future dreams, about who they were when the lights were off and the world wasn't watching. Nolly never asked him about his money. She didn't seem impressed or intimidated by his car or the way people greeted him with too much enthusiasm. Instead, she asked about his heart, not his goals, not his accolades, not the positions he was aiming for or the deals he was closing. No, Nolly asked about the quiet parts, the trembling places, the pieces of him most people never thought to explore. She asked what scared him really scared him, the moments he didn't talk about. The first time he failed at something important, the lingering weight of always being expected to succeed. She didn't fill the silence after his confessions with advice or cliché comfort. She just listened, fully, presently, as though his fears deserved to exist. And then she asked what made him feel safe, not just physically but emotionally. What steadied his hands when they trembled from the pressure? What made his shoulders relax after carrying the world? She wanted to know what made him whole. And in that moment, as she looked at him with those warm, honest eyes, Ken realized something he never expected. This was the first time he was truly understood. And for the first time in a long time, Ken didn't feel like a man being chased for what he had, but for who he was beneath the boardroom accolades and polished shoes. With Nali, he laughed more, slept better. He found peace in her presence, not pressure. Her modest one-bedroom apartment in Ngong felt warmer than any of the luxury spaces he'd ever walked through. She cooked for him, listened, never intruded, and she loved him without needing to fix or shape him. She reminded him of calm after chaos, and within a year, he proposed. Within a year, he proposed. And that was when their love began to frighten his mother. Not because Nali had done anything wrong, but because she could see how deeply he loved her, how certain he was. And certainty, when not shaped by her approval, felt like a threat. It was everything she couldn't control, and that terrified her most. Eva had always envisioned a different daughter-in-law, one from her world, refined, wealthy, polished, maybe a politician's daughter or a diplomat's niece, someone who could elevate the family name. And most importantly, someone she could control. But Nali wasn't that. One quiet Saturday afternoon, with the sun casting long golden rays over the city, Ken decided it was time. Time to bridge the two worlds he loved, the woman who had raised him and the woman who had unknowingly healed him. He had rehearsed it all morning, what he would say, how he'd explain that Nali wasn't just someone he was dating, but someone who had become part of him. He wanted his mother to see Nali the way he did, not through the lens of wealth, but through her quiet strength, her sincerity, and the rare peace she brought into his life. They arrived at his mother's house in Lavington just after lunch. Nali wore a soft emerald green dress, paired with flat shoes and minimal makeup. Her hair was braided into a neat bun, and she clutched a simple gift bag and a small bouquet of flowers. She was nervous, but determined to make a good impression. Ken held her hand as they approached the door. "Mum's a little particular," he said, offering a half smile. "But once she gets to know you, she'll love you." Nali smiled back. "I'm not here to impress her. I'm just here to be honest." He admired that about her. She never performed for approval. She just showed up as herself. His mother, Eva, opened the door, dressed in her usual silk housecoat and a look that balanced polite curiosity with barely concealed scrutiny. She scanned Nali from head to toe, her eyes pausing on the gift bag, then on Nali's shoes. "You didn't say you were bringing someone," she said, stepping aside. "I wanted it to be a surprise," Ken replied with a soft laugh, trying to ease the tension. "Mum, this is Nali. Nali, meet my mum." Nali offered the gift with both hands and a gentle smile. "It's lovely to meet you, Mama." Mrs. Eva accepted it with a nod, then turned sharply. "Come in." The next hour was a ballet of careful words and subtle glances. Ken did most of the talking, sharing stories, filling awkward pauses. Nali answered when asked, always respectfully, never trying too hard. She complimented the decor, asked about Ken's childhood, even offered to help serve tea. But beneath it all, a chill lingered. His mother's questions were sharp, laced with implication. "So, Nali, where exactly are your people from?" "Oh, events planning. That must be fun. Do you ever think of pursuing something more stable?" "And your parents own land in Ngong." Nali answered every question with grace, but Ken felt the undercurrent. His mother wasn't trying to know her, she was trying to measure her. And Nali didn't tick the boxes. No polished family name, no influential uncles, no elite schools or diplomatic ties. When they left, Ken apologized in the car. "She's just protective," he said quietly, eyes on the road. But Nali only smiled and replied, "It's okay. I didn't come to win her over. I came to show her who I am." That was the thing about Nali. She never begged to be chosen, not even by his family. In the weeks that followed that first meeting, Ken hoped his mother would warm up to Nali. He sent photos of them together, forwarded her sweet texts, even mentioned how Nali had helped him land a new partnership through her events network. But Eva wasn't budging. Instead, her resistance deepened, silent at first, then louder. She began making suggestions. "There's a girl I'd like you to meet. Njeri. Her father owns a chain of pharmacies in Nakuru. Very smart girl, studied abroad." Ken would listen quietly, then reply, "I'm not looking to meet anyone else, Mum." Other times, the criticism was veiled as concern. "You know, marriage is hard enough even when both families are equal. It helps when a girl comes from a similar background. You don't want to marry down, son." "Marrying down?" he echoed one day, stunned. "Is that how you see her?" "She's a lovely girl," his mother said, "but you're destined for greater things." Ken sighed and said, "Mum, Nali is not a burden. She is my peace." His mother didn't reply. She just looked at him, eyes dark with disappointment, and said, "You used to be smarter than this." That night, Ken drove to Nali's apartment. held her close and whispered, "No one, not even my mother, will change how I feel about you." But the pressure didn't stop. She called his aunts. They called him. Even a distant cousin messaged him to say, "Your mother isn't happy. You know how important her blessing is." Then came the final blow. One sunny Sunday afternoon, when the wedding committee had just finalized the venue and the guest list was halfway done, Ken's mother showed up at his apartment. "Ken," she said, her voice low and serious, "I will not attend your wedding if you marry that girl." The room fell silent. He looked at her, stunned. "You would skip your own son's wedding? I would rather not show up than sit there pretending to celebrate a mistake." He stood there, torn between the woman who had raised him and the woman he wanted to build a future with. But the silence inside him, the one that echoed every time his mother dismissed Nali, had become unbearable. "I love you, Mum," he said slowly. "But if attending my wedding depends on me choosing someone else, then don't come." Her face fell, as if he'd slapped her. "You're willing to lose your mother over this?" "No," he said. "I'm willing to keep my peace." She turned, gathered her purse, and walked out without another word. Ken never tried to convince her again. The wedding was smaller than planned, fewer relatives, fewer speeches, but it was warm, intimate, filled with real joy. Nali walked down the aisle in a simple lace gown, holding her head high, not because she felt triumphant, but because she knew love had chosen her freely, defiantly. And Ken, he stood at the altar, eyes misted with emotion, not from grief over a mother's absence, but from the quiet triumph of choosing love over pressure, truth over pretense. Because in Nali, he hadn't just found a partner, he'd found peace. A soft place to land. A woman who didn't come wrapped in wealth or titles, but in sincerity, grace, and unwavering loyalty. There were empty seats where family should have been, and silences where blessings should have filled the air. But the love in that room? Real, unshakable, the kind that doesn't need permission to exist. And as Nali reached the altar, her eyes locked with his, not asking for reassurance, but offering it. Ken knew this was the beginning of something sacred, not approved, not celebrated by all, but deeply chosen. And in the end, that's the kind of love that outlives every disapproval, the kind no one can rewrite. Because when love is real, it doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more stories.